Welcome back to another weekly recap for week 11 of the 2024 NFL season. Let me know in the comments below, who do you guys think will win the matchups next week? And if you like this type of content, like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out, and I appreciate all the support as we are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. The teams that were on the bye this week were the New York Giants, the Arizona Cardinals, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Carolina Panthers. And to start off the week, let's start it off with Thursday Night Football between two NFC East divisional rivals, the Washington Commanders and the Philadelphia Eagles, in which the Eagles beat the Commanders 26-18. The Commanders fall to 7-4, while the Eagles are now 8-2. Jaden Daniels went 22 for 32 with 191 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Brian Robinson Jr. led the team in rushing with 63 yards and a touchdown, while Austin Eckler led the team in receiving with 89 yards. Zach Ertz had a touchdown on the day. Jalen Hurts went 18 for 28 with 221 yards and 0 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. Saquon Barkley led the team in rushing with 146 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Jalen Hurts had a touchdown on the ground as well. A.J. Brown led the team in receiving with 65 yards on the day. The Commanders scored the first points of the game, and heading into halftime, the score was 7-3 in favor of the Commanders. Both teams exchanged field goals to start off the second half, and then the Eagles then poured on the scoring to win 26-18. The next game of the week was between the Los Angeles Rams and the New England Patriots, in which the Rams beat the Patriots 28-22. The Rams are now 5-5, while the Patriots fall to 3-8. Matthew Stafford went 18 for 27 with 295 yards and 4 touchdowns. Kyron Williams led the team in rushing with 86 yards, while Puka Nacua led the team in receiving with 123 yards and a touchdown. Cooper Kupp had 106 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Kobe Parkinson also had a touchdown. Drake May went 30 for 40 with 282 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, while Ramondre Stevenson led the team in rushing with 73 yards. Kendrick Bourne led the team in receiving with 70 yards and a touchdown, while Vidarian Lowe also had a touchdown on the day. The Patriots scored the first points of the game with a touchdown, but heading into halftime, the Rams led 14-10 and then took a 21-10 lead and just poured it on to have a 28-13 lead, and then the Patriots scored a point to give us the final score of 28-22. Next, we have a AFC North divisional matchup between the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers, in which the Steelers defeated the Ravens 18-16. The Steelers are now 8-2, while the Ravens fall to 7-4. Lamar Jackson went 16 for 33 with 207 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Derrick Henry led the team in rushing with 65 yards and a touchdown, while Isaiah Likely led the team in receiving with 75 yards, and Zay Flowers also had a receiving touchdown on the day. Russell Wilson went 23 for 36 with 205 yards, 0 touchdowns, and an interception, while Najee Harris led the team in rushing with 63 yards. George Pickens led the team in receiving with 89 yards on the day. The first points of the game were a Pittsburgh field goal, and heading into halftime, the Steelers led 9-7. And then the Steelers capped off a field goal to make it 10-18 late in the fourth quarter. The Ravens scored a touchdown but failed to get the 2-point conversion, and that's how the Steelers beat the Ravens 18-16. Where do we start off with this one? This was a shellacking by the Lions as they defeated the Jaguars 52-6. The Lions are now 9-1, while the Jaguars fall to 2-9. Mac Jones started for the injured Trevor Lawrence, going 17 for 29 with 0 touchdowns and an interception. Travis Etienne led the team in rushing with 27 yards, while Brian Thomas Jr. led the team in receiving with 82 yards. Jared Goff started the game, going for 412 yards and 4 touchdowns, while Hendon Hooker came up for the final drive in garbage time. David Montgomery led the team in rushing with 75 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Jahmyr Gibbs also had a touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown led the team in receiving with 161 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Jameson Williams also had 124 yards and a touchdown. Brock Wright also had a touchdown on the day. The Jaguars scored a field goal to start off the game. However, heading into halftime on the final drive, the score was 28-6, with the Jaguars scoring a field goal. They could not score any more points in the second half, and the Lions pulled away even more to a 52-6 victory. The next game of the week was between the New Orleans Saints and the Cleveland Browns, in which the Saints beat the Browns 35-14. The Saints are now 4-7, while the Browns fall to 2-8. Jameis Williams went 34-46 with 395 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Dorian Thompson-Robinson did not complete a pass. Nick Chubb led the team in rushing with 50 yards, and Jerry Jeudy led the team in receiving with 142 yards and a touchdown. Elijah Moore also had a touchdown on the day. Derek Carr went 21 for 27 with 248 yards and a touchdown. Taysom Hill went 1 for 2, completing every single pass except one of them was an interception. Taysom Hill led the team in rushing with 138 yards and 3 touchdowns, while Marquez Valdes-Scantling led the team in receiving with 87 yards and a touchdown. Jawan Johnson also had a touchdown on the day. The first points were scored by a Saints touchdown, and they led 14-6 heading into halftime. On the first drive of the second half, the Browns scored a touchdown to tie it up at 14, but failed to score any other points in the second half, as the Saints pulled away to a 35-14 victory. The next game of the week was between the Indianapolis Colts and the New York Jets, in which the Colts beat the Jets 28-27. The Colts are now 5-6, while the Jets fall to 3-8. Anthony Richardson went 20 for 30 with 272 yards and a touchdown, while Jonathan Taylor led the team in rushing with 57 yards, but Anthony Richardson had 2 touchdowns on the ground. Josh Downs led the team in receiving with 84 yards and a touchdown on the day, while Aaron Rodgers went 22 for 29 with 184 yards and 2 touchdowns. Breece Hall led the team in rushing with 78 yards and a touchdown. Davante Adams led the team in receiving with 72 yards, while Breece Hall and Kenny Yeboah had a touchdown each on the day. The first points of the game were scored with a Colts field goal as they took a 13-7 lead heading into halftime. The Jets scored a touchdown on their first drive of the second half to take a 14-13 lead, which was then followed up by a field goal by the Colts to take a 16-14 lead, and then the Jets scored a field goal to take a 17-16 lead, followed up by another Jets touchdown as they took a 24-16 lead over Indianapolis, which was followed up by a Colts touchdown who failed to get the 2-point conversion. The Jets lead 24-27. The Jets capped it off with a field goal to push their lead up to 27-22. But on the final drive of the game, the Colts scored a touchdown to give us the final score and a Colts victory of 28-27. The next game of the week was between the Minnesota Vikings and the Tennessee Titans, in which the Vikings beat the Titans 23-13. The Vikings are now 8-2, while the Titans fall to 2-8. Sam Darnold went 20 for 32 with 246 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Aaron Jones led the team in rushing with 39 yards. Sam Darnold had a rushing touchdown, and Justin Jefferson led the team in receiving with 81 yards, while both Jordan Addison and Cam Akers each had a receiving touchdown on the day. Will Levis went 17 for 31 with 295 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Will Levis led the team in rushing with 18 yards, while Nick Westbrook-Ikine led the team in receiving with 117 yards and a touchdown. The first points of the game were scored by a Titans field goal, which was then followed up by 2 consecutive Vikings touchdown as they took a 16-3 lead over the Titans heading into halftime. And then the Vikings pulled away with the victory in the second half as the final score was 23-13. The next game of the week was between the Miami Dolphins and the Las Vegas Raiders, in which the Dolphins beat the Raiders 34-19. The Dolphins are now 4-6, while the Raiders fall to 2-8. Gardner Minshew went 30 for 43 with 282 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Jacoby Myers led the team in rushing with 20 yards, while Brock Bowers led the team in receiving with 126 yards and a touchdown. Amir Abdullah also had a touchdown as well. Tua Tagovailoa went 28 for 36 with 288 yards and 3 touchdowns. Devon Achane led the team in rushing with 73 yards and a touchdown, while Jonnu Smith led the team in receiving with 101 yards and 2 touchdowns. Tyreek Hill also had a touchdown on the day. The Dolphins scored a touchdown on their first drive, and heading into halftime, the score was in favor of Miami 10-6. And then the Dolphins and the Raiders exchanged touchdowns throughout the second half, and Miami Dolphins won 34-19 over the Raiders. The next game of the week was an NFC North divisional rivalry matchup in which the Green Bay Packers still own the Bears as they won 20-19. The Packers are now 7-3, while the Bears fall to 4-6. Jordan Love went 13 for 17 with 261 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception, while Josh Jacobs led the team in rushing with 76 yards and a touchdown. Jordan Love also had a rushing touchdown on the day, while Christian Watson led the team in receiving with 150 yards. Jaden Reed also had a touchdown on the day. Caleb Williams went 23 for 31 with 231 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, while DeAndre Swift led the team in rushing with 71 yards and a touchdown, while Roschon Johnson also had a touchdown rushing as well. Rome Odunze led the team in receiving with 65 yards on the day. The first points of the game were scored by the Packers with a touchdown on their opening drive, which was then followed up by a field goal by the Bears. In halftime, the Bears led the Packers 10-7, and what we saw was devastating for the Bears as they failed to make the kick in last second as it got deflected and fell short of the field goal post, and the Packers snuck away with a victory. The next game of the week was between the Denver Broncos and the Atlanta Falcons, in which the Broncos easily defeated the Falcons 38-6. Both teams are 6-5 heading into Week 12. Kirk Cousins went 18 for 27 with 173 yards, 0 touchdowns, and an interception. And by garbage time, Michael Penix Jr. got a drive going 2 for 4 with 24 yards on the day. Bijan Robinson led the team in rushing with 35 yards, while Drake London led the team in receiving with 61 yards on the day. Bo Nix put up a Rookie of the Week type performance, going 28 for 33 with 307 yards and 4 touchdowns. Javonte Williams led the team in rushing with 59 yards and a touchdown, while Cortland Sutton led the team in receiving with 78 yards. Lil Jordan Humphrey, Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, and Nate Adkins each had a touchdown on the day. The first points of the game were scored by the Broncos on the opening drive with a touchdown, which was then followed up by a Falcons field goal, and by halftime, the Broncos led 21-6. The Falcons failed to score in the second half as the Broncos defeated them 38-6. The next game of the week was a NFC West divisional matchup between the San Francisco 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks, in which the Seahawks beat the 49ers 20-17. Both teams are 5-5 heading into Week 12 as Geno Smith went 25 for 32 with 221 yards, 0 touchdowns, and an interception. Kenneth Walker led the team in rushing with 54 yards and a touchdown, while Geno Smith also had a rushing touchdown on the day. Jackson Smith and Jigba led the team in receiving with 110 yards on the day, while Brock Purdy went 21 for 28 with 159 yards, a touchdown, and an interception, while Christian McCaffrey led the team in rushing with 79 yards, while Brock Purdy had a rushing touchdown on the day. Jawan Jennings led the team in receiving with 91 yards and a touchdown on the day, as the first points were scored by a Seahawks field goal on their first drive, which was then followed up by a 49ers touchdown, and heading into halftime, the Niners led 7-6. And on the final drive for the Seahawks, they scored a touchdown and only left 12 seconds for the Niners. As they did not score on that final drive, the Seahawks pulled off a 20-17 victory. The next game of the week was between two AFC rivals, between Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Buffalo Bills, in which the Bills beat the Kansas City Chiefs 30-21, handing the Chiefs their first loss of the season. The Chiefs are 9-1, while the Bills are 9-2 heading into Week 12. Patrick Mahomes went 23 for 33 with 196 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, while Kareem Hunt led the team in rushing with 60 yards on the day. Xavier Worthy led the team in receiving with 61 yards and a touchdown, while Noah Gray had 2 touchdowns on the day. Josh Allen went 27 for 40 with 262 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception, while Josh Allen led the team in rushing as well with 55 yards and a touchdown, while James Cook had 2 touchdowns on the ground. Khalil Shakir led the team in receiving with 70 yards, while Curtis Samuel had a touchdown on the day as well. The game scoring started off with the Buffalo Bills touchdown on their first drive, and then the Chiefs scored a touchdown as they led 7-6, which was then responded by the Bills touchdown as they took a 13-7 lead over the Chiefs, and heading into halftime, Buffalo had a 16-14 lead over the Chiefs. And late in the third quarter, early fourth quarter, that's when we had lots of scoring, when the Bills scored 2 touchdowns on 2 consecutive drives with a Chiefs touchdown in between, and that kind of sealed the game as the Bills took a 2-possession lead and led the game the rest of the way, taking a 30-21 victory over the Chiefs. If the Chiefs and Bills game was not already entertaining enough, here we had Sunday Night Football between the Chargers and the Bengals, the battle between two 2020 draft quarterbacks, the number 1 overall pick Joe Burrow versus the number 6 picks Justin Herbert. The Chargers pulled off the victory, beating the Bengals 34-27, while the Bengals fall to 4-7, and the Chargers are now 7-3. Joe Burrow went 28 for 50 with 356 yards and 3 touchdowns. Chase Brown led the team in rushing with 86 yards on the day, while T. Higgins led the team in receiving with 148 yards and a touchdown. Jamar Chase also had 2 touchdowns on the day. Justin Herbert went 17 for 36 with 297 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Justin Herbert led the team in rushing with 65 yards, but J.K. Dobbins had 2 touchdowns on the ground. Ladd McConkey led the team in receiving with 123 yards, while both Will Dissly and Quentin Johnston each had a touchdown on the day. The first points of the game were scored with a Bengals field goal, which was then responded by 2 Chargers touchdowns, and then a Bengals field goal in between, as the Chargers led 14-6, and heading into halftime, the Chargers took a 24-6 lead over the Bengals, which was then responded by a Chargers field goal in the second half, as they had a 21-point lead heading into the fourth quarter. It was 27-6, and then the Chargers then proceeded to lose their 21-point lead, as we were all tied up at 27 points each. Evan McPherson missed 2 field goals in a row, and then on the final Chargers drive of the game, J.K. Dobbins capped it off with a touchdown, and Joe Burrow and the Bengals offense failed to score on their final drive with a Hail Mary. Although it was close, Derwin James knocked the ball out of Jamar Chase's hand as the Chargers escaped with the victory 34-27. The last game of the week was Monday Night Football in the battle for Texas between the Houston Texans and the Dallas Cowboys, in which the Texans beat the Cowboys 34-10. The Texans are now 7-4, while the Cowboys fall to 3-7. C.J. Stroud went 23 for 34 with 257 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 1 interceptions. Joe Mixon led the team in rushing with 109 yards and 3 touchdowns. Both Nico Collins and Tank Dell led the team in receiving with 54 yards on the day. Cooper Rush went 32 for 55 with 354 yards, a touchdown, and an interception, and Brian Anger completed a pass going 1 for 1 with 4 yards, and that was on a 4th and 9 in which the Cowboys failed to get. Rico Dowdle led the team in rushing with 28 yards on the day, while CeeDee Lamb led the team in receiving with 93 yards on the day. Kayvontae Turpin had 86 yards and a touchdown on the day, as the first points of the game were scored by a Texans touchdown on their first drive, and they had a 17-7 lead over the Cowboys in the second quarter, and heading into halftime, the Texans were leading 17-10. The Cowboys failed to score in the second half as the Texans ran up the score a little more, taking a 34-10 lead over the Cowboys to win the game. And that recaps all the games for Week 11 in the 2024 NFL season. Let me know in the comments below, who do you guys think will win their Week 12 matchups? And if you like this type of content, like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out, and I appreciate all the support as we are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. If you're a fan of the NFL and college football, stay tuned, as we'll be covering both all season long. Appreciate all the support, and we'll catch you in the next one. Take care.